Welcome, everyone. We have our FACT informational meeting. I'm Tim Scheiger. I'm the school superintendent. We have Scott Kramer from Plunkett Racich and Kevin Hickman from JP Cullen. And what we'll do tonight is talk about the FACT committee that will be formed in the next week or so, and then answer questions from the group about the process and during this time period. We are streaming live, so if I'm going to probably repeat your question if there's a question, and I'm not doing that to be a clown. I'm doing it so people want to know on there what the question is, if I want to hear the question per se. So are we good, Mr. Scott?
Yep.
Okay. You can hear us okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome, everyone. The school district of Milton is obviously very excited to have to announce the community the FACT, which is the Facility Advisory Community Team, and the self-nomination process, the selection process. We'll talk about that and the dates. And the big thing is we want people to be aware of what the commitment is during this process, the time commitment, and then answer questions that people have. We do have nomination forms and fact sheets as far as demographics and information regarding the school district on the counter over there by the door that we can share if you haven't grabbed it already. So I won't get lengthy into the journey. As many of you already know, we've been working on this for a number of years, really for about 8 years. The last 18 months, though, with looking at more specifically our facilities district-wide. Had a couple of surveys out in the community, which many of you probably already took last year and in the last 2 months. So the Facility Advisory Community Team will be comprised of community members. It will not be comprised of administration or school board. These gentlemen will help facilitate the process, not facilitate the solution, but they will be there as a resource at our meetings, as I will be, and many of our staff members, to help answer questions that come up. We will be providing information on the front end as far as just the basic demographics. We'll have a lot of needs assessments to that group, and a lot of the background information that'll help not guide the discussion, but give everyone a baseline as to where we've been and the information and the processes that we've come to this point. It will be, we will look at the form itself. We are looking for community members that are interested. We've selected either Tuesdays or Wednesdays. We will let the group decide which day that is by virtue of filling out the form. What I plan on doing is when the forms come in by the end or by the 7th, I will look at those, see how many are in. We do have a dozen in right now, Baker's dozen now with this one. And I'll look at the dates that are selected. If there is a heavy leaning towards one or the other, that'll likely become the date. But what I'll do is prior to the selection process, I will notify those people. Like if it's heavy Wednesday and not so heavy on Tuesday, then I'll let the Tuesday people know that's likely going to be Wednesday. Are you still interested? Are you, so that way I want to make sure that we're very transparent, letting people know we're going to reach out. If that's the case, I'm sure many people might be either one is fine. The dates will begin the March 15 or 16, and then they'll go every other week until we get to June 27th is the date that they would present to the board. If there is something to present, if the committee or the team decides that there's not a resolution or a solution, or they need more time, we can certainly consult that as we go through the process. The selection process is the self-nomination form. You fill it out, get it to district office. Many of you have sent it to me electronically. We have a couple hard copies. We'll keep them until we get to March 7th. We will look at self-selection, and we're in the process of figuring that piece out. It might come electronically in the form of like a SurveyMonkey or something like that, where people can go ahead and select members. So we're talking about that piece still. I need to meet with the board to make sure we feel good about that piece. We might do it via paper. We're going to talk about that piece, but I want to make sure it's a vehicle that everyone can use And if it's not, if someone can't use electronic for the self-selection, then we'll figure out a way to do it paper-wise or come in or whatever. If we only have 13, we probably won't have much of a selection process. It might just be the 13 that are signed up. So I don't know how many people are going to ultimately sign up for this. And so what am I forgetting as far as process piece? Is there anything process-wise? I'm missing anything from strategic plan? Okay. As far as our roles, again, I'm kind of facilitating the initial piece of getting the FACT team together. But I'll let Scott and Kevin speak. Scott was he's part of Plunkett Racich. He was here 8 years ago when the high school design team was working on a solution. And so you've got a lengthy history with us.
Yeah, so we went through this process 8 years ago, almost identical process to understand where we wanted to go with the entire district and what to do with the high school. So our role as part of this team that we created was to advise and to bring information to the team that they request. We'll start with everything we've done to date. We can, all of the existing planning that we've done throughout the district and talk about, where we are and how we got there. But then I'm there as an advisor to the committee if you have questions, if you want to see additional ideas, if you don't understand something, we're there as an advisor to help you along in the process, in the decision-making process.
Yeah, very similar role for myself and the folks from JP Cullen will be present as well. Generally, we'll always have someone there that, if it's not me, someone will be ready to answer questions related to costs. That's a big deal in this process, and probably a lot of questions will come from the group related to costs. I think the value that both Scott and I want to provide to you is give you the information and data to make good decisions along the process, so you can keep the process moving along and stay on track with the process right until 27.
Yeah, the last time we had the committee, each night I would leave the committee with homework assignments. So you're going to give us homework assignments to go back and relook at something, draw something up, or give you more information so you understand the process.
And from our lens, the administrators, the same thing. What homework is needed so we can make a more informed decisions moving forward. It might be presentations to the team from ourselves, might be having other staff members come in and talk about various pieces to it, of areas of interest that the team wants to know more about. And so we're here to serve this community team. And as the community team is looking at different types of solutions, the big thing for us is not what the final solution is, if there is a final solution. It's that people are open-minded to look at different solutions, because obviously the facility needs are a big deal for us right now. And so really we're looking for with community members that are going to be attentive to or part of this team, is that you're open to looking at solutions and coming up with recommendations or at least a recommendation or more to the board, and using us as resources and other staff members that'll be there. There will not be board members on the team. There will be I'm assuming we've talked about this last week, having a board, maybe appointed liaison to attend meetings, but there will not be more than 2 or 3 at any meeting. But their role is not to influence the process at all. They're just there as to listen. I'm sitting on the audience with most people. When the team is comprised, the team will also select a chair or co-chair to help the meetings run along, and of course Scott and Kevin will also help the meetings move. Again, not the direction of the meeting, but keep the meeting moving. Let's see, what else? Anything else from initial while we're here?
Just that we'll have a very good secretary that's going to also document everything we do. So that's made available publicly as well.
Well, we're planning on doing it much like we have this. This is the FAST fact sheet regarding talking about demographics of the district and timelines of where we've been and buildings, etc. We plan on having a newsletter that'll come out after each meeting, so that way the public stays informed with the conversation that's going on within the FACT team meetings. We'll have a secretary, like I said, to keep good minutes and good notes, and we will post those. And we'll also, again, really try to keep the public informed in different ways, whether it's the hard copies, stuff put out on the internet. I've been doing the Tim Talks. We've got a couple of those done. We'll have keep those going, trying to find different venues of pushing the information out so people who weren't there are informed. And obviously, we expect that the F.A.C.T team will be talking to people in between the meetings as well. And so gathering information and giving out information as well. And so we're hoping to have a quick turnarounds with the information from the meetings, a couple days. And like I said, we'll be doing the homework and whatever projects you have us do in between the meetings. There's a total of 8 meetings. For those people who think that's either too fast or too slow, we want to make sure that we have this team do its diligence as far as looking at where we've been, what information has been created already. We already have facility studies done. We already have a lot of infrastructural recommendations done through PRA, through JP Cullen, and with our district personnel, buildings and grounds, et cetera, and staff. So we have a lot of information done. So a lot of the background information will be presentations, much more than last time, where a lot of it was development and then a presentation, development and then presentation. We have a lot of that background work done already. And we figure every 2 weeks, there'll be healthy conversations. And after a period of a few months, there should be a lot of information that the team will have to make an informed recommendation or recommendations at some point to the board. There is no definitive requirement for us to go to a referendum in November. If the team feels we're not ready as a community to do that, then by all means we won't. Statutorily, there are deadlines to meet. So if there is a desire to go to referendum for any kind of a project in November, you've got to count back 75 days, 70 days, which takes us to August, earlier in August. The reason why we want the team to have, if it's completed with the recommendations by the end of June, is that it gives the school board an opportunity to listen to what the recommendations are and to have a couple of meetings to digest what's being brought. Should the board wish to accept even what the team, it's an advisory. So we want to have some time so that way it's not like we turn into the team is done. We've got to make a comment. We have to have a vote or something right away that next time. We want to be diligent to that. But there are requirements. We will have to have a referendum or multiple referendum questions vetted through legal and all that. So it gives us time to do that stuff should it get to that point. Anything else I'm missing as far as the nuts and bolts?
No, I think I picture that's good.
I guess with that, I will, unless there's anything from the board members or, I guess with that, I would open it up for questions this time. If you have any questions?
Where will those meetings be held at here?
We're thinking it'll probably be held in a school. We're thinking right now the high school. And we're going to look at the venue, but we're thinking the high school, it's got a bigger space, depending if people, especially if people are going to be coming in. It's a more predictable space for us. And it's a building that's already open in the evening, so it'll be less to have to be having meetings and setting up and taking down and all that. It's already placed. It's already. So we're thinking about the high school at this point. We may decide though to rotate it to a couple other buildings throughout this process, but we're thinking the high school.
Are you looking to develop a long-term strategic plan? Is that one of the goals of this?
Well, we have a strategic plan already set up. This team can look at what are the needs, the physical needs of facilities, and look at what are some potential long-term solutions. Perhaps there's a short-term one and then a longer-term one. Or here's the big picture. Here's phase 1, 2, or 3 of that. So we have our capital improvement, and we have that piece. That's a living document, but this could be yes, absolutely. This team could help us with what's the long-term solution. And if we can't get there in one shot, maybe it's 2 or 3 pieces in that recommendation, then yes, that'd be part of the conversation.
So we would actually be informed of what that strategic direction is, so that any recommendation we can make would fall within that. You know, so we would work towards this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But the group isn't confined by some currently existing strategic plan.
No, we have our strategic plan for instructional, the student outcomes and all of that, and obviously our facilities is a piece to that. It's a means to a larger end, which is helping the kids have with education, with opportunities. And so what we're hoping for is this team looks at the physical facilities and says, okay, well, there's limitations here. Here's some ideas, and help us with ideas, and maybe create some renderings or whatever those ideas, and then recommend to the board. We feel that in order to achieve the strategic plan of educating kids and opportunities, we recommend this course of action. That course of action might be one course of action or numerous ones. What I think they're asking for is that probably continuum, yes. But it's all aligned with our strategic plan. But we don't have here is the plan, go do it. That's not what we're saying at this point. With the physical structures, I mean.
Is this one big committee working on one project, or is it a group of smaller subcommittees working on multiple projects?
This is, I'm sorry, I didn't repeat the questions. This is not a multiple, the question is this a multiple committees or one committee? It's one committee. It's one team working on a solution for long-term, short-term for our facility needs. So it won't be multiple committees going off into factions. It'll be a group of people, however many people there are, 20, 23, whatever, to come up with solutions together moving forward for a facility plan or recommendations for the board for our facilities.
How big of a group do you think you can have and still have it function well?
Well, the committee last time was 15. So we're looking at 15 to 20 range ideally. And like I said, we'll see how many applications we actually get.
We've dealt with larger and smaller, so shouldn't be a problem.
Can you just kind of summarize the process a little bit? Because I've seen, there's 8. You said there were 8 meetings, and I think there's probably a lot of information that we'll probably have to come up to speed with, and I'm just wondering, what's the, agenda or objectives for each of the meetings? I mean, is the first one just kind of orientation, the next one, here's a plan for A? Can you just talk a little bit about
Sure. As far as the question regarding the process, the agendas moving forward, I'll let you guys start with the.
Yeah, why don't you start? You've got the notes right there. We met on this today.
Yeah. So great question. Well, we've got the first meeting pretty much set in stone, because that's the one right in front of us. I think what we talked about recently was, one of two things could happen. And I think the desire would probably be to have the folks that ultimately get selected for this committee to take at least a minimum a tour of the high school, if not of some of the other schools ahead of time before the first meeting. I think that'll be determined, but some sort of direction will come out ahead of time requesting you take some personal time to get through the schools to give you a baseline knowledge of the facility. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I think that many of you probably have already gone on some of the tours. We'll look to have some tours set up, but we don't want to spend a lot of time during these meetings going around touring. And so, because it could be an hour, hour and a half so we're going to hope that the people who want to be a part of this committee will take the time. And if it's not by the first meeting, at least shortly thereafter the first meeting of the buildings, at least the ones we have set up right now. And we'll obviously be willing to work within schedules to some degree.
But in terms of the first meeting, then the first thing we're going to do, I think, to some of the questions we have here tonight is really give you a clear background on how we got to where we are today. And so some of that will come from the district. It'll come from Tim and others. It'll come from Scott. It'll come from myself or some others at JP Collins, just to talk to you really about, looking maybe even as far as 8 years back, but certainly the last 18 months ago, and it's really how we get to where we are. Just to give you that perspective for those of you that haven't been able to either participate or have that perspective. Then we'll talk some about the charge of the committee, the objectives of the committee, just get that clarity out there. We'll get into more detail, presenting you really, what are the options that have been looked at, just to give you that perspective, that above and beyond kind of where we got to where we are today. And then we'll look in total at kind of the timeline you've got in front of you. So the 7 or 8 meetings, and then realistically, after you make your recommendation to the board, if that's what you decide to do, what happens after that, just to give you, again, a clear direction. You're going to need to then assign committee chair or chairs, a secretary. We'll talk just again briefly about the role of the board, the role of the consultants, and what we do to support you, the role of the district. Every meeting will have a good portion dedicated to Q&A to make sure we have a lot of dialogue going back and forth. Again, any assignments we've got to come walking away from there. Make sure you have plenty of time to ask the questions you need to ask, so we've got plenty of time then to be responsive. Then we'll do a thorough review of the next meeting's agenda, so you guys are clear on what we're going to come back with when we come back again. Then today, Scott and I kind of discussed, so what happens after that meeting. So it's not all set in stone, but basically the second meeting we're envisioning would be a lot of staff, principals, for instance, and other staff in the district coming back to you and kind of talking about what needs are within the district from their perspective. So you're not only hearing it from kind of what we've seen and maybe the district leadership has seen, but the folks that are kind of the boots on the ground, so to speak, all day long, what it is that they're experiencing. Couple that with hopefully the chance you've had to kind of go through the facilities and see it firsthand. That'll have a lot of opportunity then for you to do some Q&A with them as well. That may take a full second meeting. I'm not sure. We'll have to see how that really goes. From there, there'll be, I'm not going to get into detail on every single meeting, but I'll tell you what kind of the content of the meetings will kind of break out as. There'll be a fair amount of looking then at, depending on what direction the committee really kind of migrates to in terms of either it's a specific facility solution or a number of them. It'll be, Scott's group is very good at helping you go through exercises to define and better answer questions about how you prioritize what those might be. And then you'll get into obviously discussions on different options and what directions you might go. We'll review a lot of pros and cons. We'll look at costs, a lot of costs specifically, because you have a lot of questions on those. Not to get the cart before the horse, Tim, but we might look at grade level impacts and things like that, depending on the options you go at. And then we'll get into what you eventually want to look to present to the board and how you want to do that, why you want to do that, why you think that's the right direction to go. And then what potential impacts that'll have on the district, the community, all those types of things. So in big picture, I think that's how the meetings will lay out. After the second meeting, though, we really have to let the board, the committee's leadership, in addition from our support, kind of take the lead role in how those committee meetings really kind of shake out. We're going to be there to help kind of guide you through that, but you guys are going to have to really figure out how you prioritize that and what direction things go, depending on the conversation goes, if that makes sense.
So once, in one of some of the later meetings, once you decide on a direction, what is this going to be? We'll assist you in going through some design exercises and actually laying out the building, where it might go, or additions, or whatever comes out of it, your discussions.
Hopefully that answered it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So am I to assume there are facilities assessments that have been done of all the school buildings?
Yes.
Okay.
And that'll be provided, that introduction of packet we'll give to the committee members. And talk through, obviously, there'll be a lot of conversation about that stuff as well. But.
Are you suggesting that besides the middle and high schools that we should also tour the elementary schools?
Yeah, as far as touring the buildings, we will have tours set up or invitations for tours set up at the high school and the middle school, north side, and the elementaries as well. And the elementaries, again, throughout this process, we'll be setting them up as we go. But yeah, I think it's good to see what the buildings are like. And we've talked about having them during the day when you see when they're kids. Obviously, beyond the high school, the buildings are pretty quiet at night later, other than perhaps the gym space. So if we want to get a feel for that piece, and I know that our principal's been working to set up times during the school days as well, so you can see what it's like when the kids are around. But yes, to answer your question, yes, the more you can see, the better feel you get for the district.
Just to clarify in my mind, the charge of the committee is moving forward, or are you starting from scratch? Because what I've observed during the overall process is that when the board created a potential action on referendum for a $45 million referendum question, that was tabled or there was no vote taken on it. The question in my mind was that sensitive to the issues that you want to go to the 25 million or less, or the 90 million area. So objectively, what is the charge of the committee moving forward from 45 mil plus, or moving from 45 mil and see if you can do something for less? What would that defined charge be, or would the committee make that decision? And if the committee were to make the decision, where would be their start point?
Well, to answer your question, yes.
I think I asked the negative one.
You know,
It's the same answer.
right. When the board put out there the $45 million potential question for the referendum, to address some of the educational, we included the pool, which is educational for us as well. We looked at the areas to really look at a beginning of a new high school, but address the areas of highest concern that we felt as a school district. That was met with appreciation, but not necessarily support from the community. And so in looking at it, we're not starting over with the process. It's help us define what the solution is. And so we have a lot of background information done. We need to answer the questions of this team to figure out so they have the same baseline of knowledge. They'll obviously bring their lenses, their opinions into it, but really it's designing what's the solution that truly is workable then for the community, taking into account the needs of the school district educationally, along with the needs of the community, as well as the threshold of cost. And so will the solution be the $45 million option, or higher or lower? I don't know what it's going to be. And that's why we want the community to decide what it is. We will present what the options were from earlier in the year and as a starting point. But really the conversations are going to be about what does the community see as the needs. They'll ask us questions, they'll ask administrators and staff questions, and then to help define what that solution is. But ultimately we're looking for a solution from the community that community feels it's worth doing and it's affordable. But we're not starting over to answer your question. We'd like to actually move forward. We paused and now say, okay, that solution was not a good one for the community. Then we're asking what is. And that's where we're at. We'll take the information we've gathered and then help us with that solution. I don't know if that answers, hopefully, your.
Well, it does a little bit. But, I'm just, there was a lot of work done.
Absolutely.
And I heard resoundingly at the meeting that when you folks tabled the $45 million issue, a pretty aggressive presentation were made by a number of citizens with regard to the fact that let's do it right. And 45 mil didn't seem to be an appropriate amount from the standpoint that we're gonna need more than what you folks are proposing. So I guess what I'm trying to get clear in my mind is, does the committee backpedal? Do they retrofit what was there probably in the 45 million and maybe put priorities on other parts of that plan? Or do we want to take more of a progressive look at where the district needs are to address them, and to fiscally draw out a map or a fiscal plan that is acceptable by the majority to continue building on what Milton already has?
I mean, like you said, a lot of the work has been done, and what we're going to do is present that work and then let the community eyes look at it and say, you know what, okay, let's put together a solution that's a better one whether it's a retrofit or brand new or a combination or whatever. And let's look at costs and renderings and designs and whatever else. And then if that's the direction, and then whatever that dollar amount is, we'll figure out the tax impact and all of that and share that. But yeah, I don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah, I get that. I guess what I'm looking at is that time and investment of money have already been spent doing a lot of research. And the thing is if that material and data is already there, that's a great base to start at. But the question or the charge to the committee is, where should that committee go from there? I mean, if you start going backwards, then you've spent all this money just to look at the stuff that's already done. Not that that's not important, and not that there isn't a sensitivity to the folks who feel that maybe it's not affordable. But I think it's, I agree with the charge of the committee that you need to justify why you're going where you're going. But by the same token, I can only speak for myself. I would not like to see this committee regress and do work over that has already been discovered. And part of the committee's role would be to come up to speed to where this 18 months of work has already been done.
Right. Well, that's
and then decide whether that $45 million is a start point, or do we start someplace else and move up, or do we start at 45 and move down? That's the question that hasn't been answered.
Right. Well, and to Kevin's point, as far as here's what that first meeting and a half, or almost 2 meetings will be. Here's where we've been. Here's what's been proposed. These options or solutions, or the final solution, at least the one that was going to be proposed in January, was not the acceptable one by the community. So let's talk about how we got here. But let's not spend so much time that we are regressing or rehashing the last 8 years, and especially the last 18 months. So then it's going to be the charge of this group, this team, and then, okay, now move forward with solutions. And so there isn't that regressing per se. It's about finding a solution or solutions moving forward. And to your point, whether it's a large plan with sections or one plan or whatever it is, that's for the group to decide. But then, but you're right. That's our goal, is to move forward, not sit and spin.
Conversely, I'd be a little reluctant to participate in a committee whose destiny is predetermined and steered. I'd want to make sure that the committee is allowed the latitude to go where they need to go and do what they need to do. Seems to me at the end of the day, we're not the only South Central Wisconsin municipality of 6,000 people to go through this process. Hopefully, there's a lot of information out there from similar communities, similar people, attendance, and the district picture, where we can look at some of the things that they've done, the costs that they've borne, and what they've gotten out of that. And some of that now is historical data that could be looked at to see where they went since then, and what type of improvements they've seen in achieving their educational goals that the district had. I'm one not to reinvent the wheel, so I'm hopeful that we've got access as a committee to, whoever's on this committee will also have some outreach access outside of the district to some comparative municipalities to see, the tax base, what they afforded, taking a look at bond ratings, and really understanding some equality with other municipalities and not being steered to a predetermined.
I think you'll hear a lot of that in the first couple of meetings, and we talk about the history of what we've done. We've got a lot of that research that Tim has put together and that we've put together that will be presented to the group.
Right. And to your question, for that, there might be some, whether it's the group or sending us out to do more work to find other comparables, as well. But to your point, as far as predetermined, we came up with that $45 million solution because we felt we needed to address the areas of key concern at the time that we felt, with looking at the direction and the input that we had gathered. And however, it was, the interpretation of the surveys and the conversations, as we put together that $45 million option, it was clear that it was not the final solution, that the community didn't want that. And so to answer your point, we don't have a predetermined one. So really what we're doing is stepping back and say, okay, if that wasn't the right one, then tell us what is. And that's what we're here to listen. And then we're basically, we do the bidding in between those meetings. And we want the committee to take over and say, what do you want? And otherwise, you're right. Otherwise, we'd be disingenuous and be saying, well, let's just have this. Then we would just say, let's just have this as our solution team. That's not what we want. We want the community to tell us what is the solution then.
I think everyone in the community agrees that the ultimate goal of this is to ensure that our school district and the students in it have all the resources, the facilities that are appropriate to give them the best possible education that we can. I wonder, and maybe I haven't been as involved here locally as I was in the past. Why do you feel the district residents, the district voters currently via survey have indicated that they won't support the two referendums, if not just dollars? Why do you think there was such opposition to a $90 million and a $45 million question?
I think there's different. I think there's probably different reasons. For a number of years, there has been a conversation about, do we need a new high school? Okay, it was 8 years ago, and it was overwhelmingly what people talked about the last 14 months or so prior to December. And then when the price was unveiled, it was $75 million approximately 8 years ago, and the price tag now 90. I think that the vision people liked, but the price tag definitely not. Okay, the $45 million option, we heard a lot from people that it wasn't the cost as much as it didn't solve the issues. It solved some issues, but the community wants, or at least told us, they want a different solution to cover more pieces to the puzzle. We also have, unlike 8 years ago, when we were growing by 100 students a year, there wasn't the operational component. So now there's an operational component. As you see, we know that the state funding is not as kind to school districts and municipalities as they used to be years ago. And so we have that operational piece, which is a component to this. And so in looking at, we'll have plenty of education about operations and bonding as well through this committee. But to answer your question, Brett, I think it's depending on the angle, it's kind of an answer to that, because I think that the 90 million is a big number.
Right.
45 million is a big number. And I think that people are looking at the cost and the solutions and kind of, this isn't quite meshing, so we would like something else. And instead of trying to figure out what that is, we want the community to tell us what it is. And then we can put it together however the committee wants and the community wants, because ultimately the community will decide regardless. So
at the root of my question is, at the end of the day, referendums are marketing. It's getting information out and communicating the need and the solution to that need.
Correct.
My sense is that there is not a broad agreement on what the need is currently at this point. I think there probably is a general agreement on that need within the people who both get a paycheck from the district and who are involved in the district at the board level or other levels, the folks who are intimately involved. And I think that opinion is probably most valid because it's most intimate to the needs. But I don't sense that there is a general, not only agreement, but even awareness of what those needs are to be addressed. I think, to Wilson's point, I think that might be a spot that you need to think about starting at is identifying what are those givens? What are the things that can be broadly agreed to that are absolute needs to be addressed? Then use that as your jumping off point, where you say, okay, and now how do we shape a solution to that need?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's right. I guess just taking a little step from where Brett was going, that is there a parallel effort going on to do some of that education to the broader community? Because I guess my concern is we get to June, you have a recommendation, the board says yes, doesn't really give you a lot of time to go from there to continue the education on the need part. Obviously, at that point, you could do the education on what the solution is, assuming there is one, but is there a parallel effort to continue some of the education piece?
And that's why we're looking at these on a regular basis. We have the tours. We're looking at different ways to market the need so people understand where that's at. Obviously, with the meetings that occur, the discussion, people will be able to articulate it in a different way. A lot of times when you live it like we do all the time, we assume that people are aware. And as much as this might be new to many people, for us, for at least the last 18 months, if not longer, we've talked about it over and over and over again. So you're right, trying to find different ways to articulate the needs that are that people can understand. And then with the meetings, making sure that we put out, okay, what was the discussion like? Again, articulating the conversation and the needs from a different lens. Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, sir.
I'm concerned about the timeline. It seems like a lot of work and a lot of information to be gathered and a lot of discernment to make the final decision in the end. And I'm just questioning, is it enough time to do all that? I don't know how the amount of meetings was scheduled but you know, if I were chosen to be on a committee, I would really want to do some digging and understand. Otherwise, why be on it? You can't make it educate.
As far as the timeline question for those on the online, it may seem a pretty aggressive timeline. For some, it may seem kind of slow because they've been in touch with a lot of things. We'll let the committee decide that as we present, and that's why when I said earlier, there is a if we go to referendum in November, here's the deadline working backwards, but there's no requirement to say we have to be ready by that time. At the end of the day, if there are solutions that are posed, then we want to be the right solution. And if that means we're ready for it in November or we're not, we've got to wait till the April one or whatever that is, we'll let the team decide that. But to your point, we don't want to rush, but we also know a lot of work has been done. So once we bring the team up to speed, then it's going to be up to them to really roll up the sleeve to have the discussions and say, okay, what more do you need? And we talk about possible solutions. Okay, what solution are you talking about? What do you need from us to make sure that you can get the answers so that maybe it's viable or not viable? And so it's going to be a lot of work, absolutely. And those meetings it'll be important for the chairs to really keep it moving, and we'll be doing lots of homework in between. But to your point, we're not going to rush this. We just know that we have a timeline and some type of deadline for now. At least we know movement has to occur and get people focused during that time.
And I think the difference between this and 8 years ago, we can probably expand on this, but the committee's charge is not going to be to design a specific, well, it's not going to be designed. It's going to be an elementary school, or middle school, or high school, or addition, or whatever the solution ends up being. It's going to be to develop a solution, right? The design will happen after a referendum passes. The committee will come up with the concept, and then the design will happen after a referendum passes. So the difference last time was 8 years ago. That was actually a design committee. You got into the nuts and bolts and a lot of the details. So that particular charge, the committee won't have that burden this time around.
Not to the level that we're
Not
at.
the level.
Right. I mean, we're still going to do some design work and understanding, how any addition is going to get put onto a building, how it impacts the site, the adjacencies and things like that, but not to every door and, room, in a building. So we're not going to go that far. The good news is this time we've got all of we probably have 75 to 80% of the information in our back pocket already. So we've got that. We're going to turn it all over to you in the first 2 meetings. So a lot of that legwork has already been done. So then it's having the committee digest that, understand it, and then, hopefully lead us forward to a solution.
Yes, sir.
I'll express a concern in the form of a question. Do you anticipate that most of this committee will be simply looking at brick and mortar solutions?
Well, part of what was brought up earlier, the configurations. If there is we'll be having conversation. If there's a solution that's going to involve, let's say it's a new high school is involved. Well, then what happens with the current high school or with configurations? That could be that's going to be some part of the discussion as well. We're not going to be getting into a lot of the curricular decisions. Obviously, well, there will be some with the. I'm sure the pool will be a topic at some point. So there's a lot of bricks and mortar here because a lot of bricks and mortar is what we have to deal with. So there'll be a heavy discussion on bricks and mortar, but there will be grade level configurations and other things as a part of these discussions. And some of our homework might be to come back with, here's a couple of brick and mortar solutions. Can you come back with some curricular ones or alignment of grade levels, whatever, so we can have that as part of the next conversation.
I'm thinking of the use of technology, different ways to spread students out.
Absolutely, and obviously being one-to-one now, the plans from 8 years ago, if it's a new building, might look different because we're one-to-one or mobile many places. So that's an example of how life has changed inside the last decade. And so, but yeah, there'll be some of those types of things as far as what are the needs now of students and how do we address them, and if bricks and mortar will look different now moving forward. Yeah, absolutely.
Just have one quick comment and a shameless plug for our website. There's a lot of people had wondered about a lot of information and is it going to be enough time and things like that. All of the information that's been shared from either PRA or JP Cullen is on our website, from the instructional facility needs assessment, the status of existing buildings, the PowerPoint presentation. If you go to our main website, and I think that's what this community will find to be a challenge, is that there were so many needs that were identified. And that, but a lot of that information is already there, so that people who have questions or concerns or are wondering, they can go there and they can see, going all the way back to July 8th of 2015, when about the same number of people met in this room and shared what their desire was for district-wide solutions after reviewing a PowerPoint presentation from PRA on the status of all of our district buildings. So a lot of that information.
And that's right on the front page.
That's correct. Yeah. Yep. Click on that, you'll go to a page that says instructional and facility needs assessment. And there's about 9 or 10 different links to all different presentation, meeting notes, work that's been done by PRA to date, and some of the feedback that the community has given us at a variety of different checkpoints throughout the last 18 months.
Other questions? We do have the nomination forms. We have hard copies here. There are electronic copies you can send in as well. We're looking for people to sign up by March 7th, which is next Monday. And then we will be going through the they'll be going through the self-selection process. But like I said, I will, if there's a definitive day that works better than the others according to the people that submit these, then I will contact those if it's the opposite day and let them know. As that might be the first filter, but I'm going to contact people so people know. I don't want to say, oh, I didn't know, I would have switched over to Tuesday if it was Wednesday, or whatever. So I'm going to be very transparent. Who wants to be involved. We want to include as many people as possible, and but keep it as a workable size, which is brought up earlier. So, other questions? Yes.
Hi, I'm new to the district, so I guess my concern is, since I don't, I haven't been here years and years and years and know all the politics of it. My only concern is, if I was on a board like this, is at the end we're an advisory board. And we take the idea to the school board. I mean, is there a chance that they can just nix all this months of work and say, no, we don't like the plan? Or at the same rate, they can take it and go with it, and then if it doesn't work out, everybody on the board kind of becomes the scapegoat in this, because we're not the elected officials. You know what I'm saying? So I guess I'm just a little wondering how that whole system would work once the advisory committee comes up with an idea. Is it like a go, then the board's gonna okay it, or is there gonna be, have to go back and work more, or scrap the whole board, get a new board, that kind of thing? I just don't wanna be thrown under the bus, you know what I'm saying? Because we're not the elected officials if we were on the board. So that's just a concern. Hi, I'm Julie.
I think that I know the board administration, we definitely do not want to waste people's time. And when we've spent this last 18 months really intimately looking at our strategic plan, developing benchmarks and outcomes curricularly, and now getting to the point of facilities, that we've done a lot of legwork, and we thought we put together an idea that was a good solution to some of our needs. And when the community said that's not good enough, whatever way, whether it's too high or too low a cost and the solution and all that kind of stuff, as a board, we believe, and I'm speaking for the board, I guess, right now, that we want the community to help us with that solution. And so, to your point, the board ultimately will make it a recommendation to go to referendum, whether it's that solution or a different one. The voters will choose whether or not that's the right one. But the school board is well in tune with the community as far as let's listen to the community. And that's what we're hoping that this does, is it provides a platform for us to listen and say, okay, we get it now. We get what you're looking for, and here's the cost of that, and then let's see what happens. You know, and I don't know what the ultimate, if there's going to be a solution presented by this team in June or thereafter, but the board is very much waiting to see what the community wants. And so I guess I'm not worried about there being a big disconnect between the community and the board, to answer your question. I don't know if we'll go referendum at this point or not, but we really want to know what the community wants. Any other questions? All right, with that, I think, we got out of here, it's about 7 o'clock. I appreciate your time. So again, if you have any questions that come up, call me, email me, or any of the board members, or Jerry, or you guys. All right, thank you so much. Take care.